Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Let me start sharing the screen. Um, okay. So today we will look at some of the very interesting concepts on the Linux operating system. Now, as a fresher, whenever you are trying to look out for a job or whenever you are trying to, get into a job, especially in the field of IT industry as a fresher, there are two, three important things which you will have to be very strong at. For example, one is programming. Okay. So maybe so in this course you are learning Node.js or JavaScript, other programming language. That is basically how you can use a language. That is one thing that you have to learn. Again, that will come basically from your practice. The second important thing is the logic. Okay. So how well you can write a logic. So given a problem, how well you are able to solve that problem logically is a very, very important thing. Again, this also comes from your common sense. It comes from your mathematics fundamentals that you have, plus the amount of practice that you do. And there are other two important concepts, one of which is database, where you basically understand how is the data stored by an application. And today we have applications which cater to billions and billions of records, or maybe terabytes and petabytes of data. And another important thing that one should be very, very comfortable is the operating system. So when we look at operating system, we are not talking about Windows. Okay, Windows is usually a personal operating system. Maybe you are using at home, right? But when you are talking about a very technical level of operating system that a person should know in an IT industry is basically Linux. Okay, Linux is being used in almost all servers that you see across the world run on Linux, right? Or okay, Linux has several distributions. So what you should know from a interview perspective, from a techie perspective. Okay, so the objective of see one of the things is like in information technology, it's very important to be a techie, a tech freak, right? Now this will allow you when you are having a conversation with your client, or maybe when you're having a conversation during an interview, or you're having a conversation with anybody who is in technical field, you should know a lot of things. Okay. And one of the things that you can actually learn to basically talk about how technical you are or showcase how technical you are is basically the operating system concept. Okay, so if you look at the operating system concepts, if you look at the open mentor, so in the open mentor upskill program, so you have been looking at various commands of the Linux operating systems, right? For example, you have seen how do we create a user. So yesterday, Krishnan showed you how to install the Linux operating system. Okay, has anybody tried installing Linux operating system on a base machine? So you have tried installing Linux on a Windows machine, right? On a Windows machine, you used Oracle VirtualBox and you installed Linux. Sorry, or you used the subsystem, the Windows subsystem, and installed Linux on top of it. Has anybody ever tried installing Windows on a bare machine? I mean, on a new machine, have you ever installed a Linux? Maybe you can try it. Maybe I don't know. You're all students, so maybe in your colleges or anywhere you can try installing it. I mean, it's not going to be any different. I mean, I'm just telling you it's not going to be a different, but this will definitely add as a very good point in your resume that I know how to install Linux on a bare machine, rather than telling I know how to install a Windows, right? This makes a very, very stronger point on your Linux. Now, coming back to the fundamentals of operating system, there are certain concepts in operating system that you should be very much aware. Okay, that you should be very much aware. Now, let me ask you some questions. Now, Linux was developed using what other Linux? Was Linux the fundamental operating system, or was it derived from something else? Was Linux? You can type that in the QA box. Was Linux? You can type in the QA box. Yeah. Yes. So Linux came in from Unix. Okay. Actually speaking, uh, Linux did not come from. I mean, it came from Unix. Yeah, I do agree. Okay. It came Linux. Linux is the small brother of Unix. Yeah, correct. Right. But it actually was developed from something called as MINX, Minix, okay, which is actually from Unix. Okay, so from Unix to Minix, then to Linux. Okay, so there was a guy called Linus, Linus Torvalds. He's the guy. He's the guy who developed the Linux operating system. He developed this as a hobby, actually. In 19, sorry, spelling is wrong here. So he developed this as a hobby, okay, in 1990s. Okay. Now, so Linux has been widely used in, many organizations, many companies use Linux, mainly for server operating system. Okay. Now, there are certain very, very interesting facts about Linux before we jump into the operating system concepts to make it more interesting. See, why should I know about all these things, right? So, for example, you're going for an interview and you mentioned something about operating system Linux. You mentioned, and somebody is asking you, tell me something about Linux. Anybody can tell, okay, Linux is a server-based operating system. Many people use it and stuff like that. But telling some very, very interesting points about Linux will fetch you extra points. This will make the person understand that you're very good at, understanding. You are very enthusiastic about learning Linux and stuff like that. So here I am going to give you some very, very interesting facts about Linux, which you could use it for, for your interview preparations or just as a matter of knowledge. First, you all know Linux is an open source OS. What do you mean by open source operating system? What do you mean by open source operating system? Can someone tell me what do you mean by open source operating system? You can type it in the QA box. Is my voice breaking? My voice breaking? Am I clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, fine. Open source. Okay, what do you mean by open source? Do you mean by open source? Okay. Yes, many people have typed open source means free of cost. Yes, that is one point. Okay, that is not the only point. Open source is different from a free software. Free software is different, open source is different. Open source means the source code is also available. It is just not the software available to you. You have Linux, right? Linux operating system is available along with the source code. So you can basically open the source code, change, for example, there are some people in the classroom, say, for example, uh, Prakash said my voice is breaking. Maybe Prakash can create his own operating system. He can create his own operating system. Just wherever it is Linux, he can replace it with Prashant and it becomes Prashant operating system. And you can even sell it. It's just not that you can. It is just that not you just create an operating system by changing it. So you can basically create an operating system. You can create an operating system by using the source code. You can also commercially sell it. You can also commercially sell it. We will look at what are all the commercial versions of Linux operating system in some time now. Okay, so that is one important thing. Now, usually, what will be the size of the operating system? Can somebody tell? Okay, if you're trying to install Windows, okay, you're trying to install Windows. What will be the size of your Windows operating system size? What is the Windows operating system size? Can somebody take a guess? it comes to somebody says 10 GB, somebody says 120 GB, and so many things. Can somebody guess and tell me what will be the size of the Linux operating system in its first version? In the first version, when Linux operating system was launched, do you know what is the size of it? What could be the size of it? Just take a rough guess. Just take a rough guess. When you introduced the operating system for the first time, it was introduced in 1991. Okay, so just take a rough guess. What will be the size of it? Somebody says 4 to 5 GB. Somebody says 2 GB, 500 MB. Satyanarayanan is very close, 250 KB. Another person, Pandi, is also close, 231 KB. Okay, but it was actually just 65 KB. It is just 65 KB. When it was first, 65 KB means not even the size of a song, not even the size of a meme. Or a Vadivel meme template also nowadays takes 200 KB or 300 KB. Okay, it is less. It's the size of a GIF. Whatever GIF you are having these days, when it's the size of a GIF. Okay, it was 65 KB when it was first developed, and now it is 10 million lines of code. 10 MLOC. Okay, what is MLOC? Million lines of code. KLOC stands for kilo lines of code. Okay, 1 million means 10 lakh. Okay, so 10 into 10, so 1 crore lines of code is there. Okay, and if there are, as on today, there are at least 12,000 developers from over 1,200 companies have contributed to Linux. So basically, why should you know it? Okay, basically, when somebody is asking you, tell me about Linux, right? Instead of just telling it's an open source, yeah, you should definitely add it's an open source, but you can tell it like, it is an open source operating system developed by Linus Torvalds as a hobby using Minx operating system. The initial operating system size was just 65 KB, and now it is 10 million lines of code. More than 12,000 developers from 1,200 organizations have developed this software, right? So it's basically, and you can also say Linux can run on any hardware, even your mobile phone. Your Android is actually a Linux. Your Android is actually a Linux. Okay, so again, this is another interesting. Again, the rate at which the Linux operating system is developed is unmatched. Okay, now if you take the top 500 supercomputers in the world, 485 supercomputers use Linux. Somebody is asking, why should you use Linux? This is the best answer you can give. Out of 500 supercomputers in the world, right? 485 supercomputers use Linux. So that is the power of Linux. So it is, what are the reasons? It is much faster. You have better user control. You have better security features compared to other operating system. It can run on any operating system, and it can run on any form factor, meaning it can run on Windows, it can run on a big server, it can run on a desktop, it can run on a what do you call a mobile phone. It can run on a small Raspberry Pi. So you have Raspberry Pi, which is a microcontroller kind of a small processor. It can run on that also. Okay, it can literally run on any of the operating systems that you can even think of. Okay, so such is the, so now you have a better answer of how to answer why Linux, right? And another interesting thing about Linux is the 95% of the code of Linux is written in, can you guess? 95% of the Linux code is written in what language? Ninety-five percentage of the Linux code is written in what language? Can you take a guess? It's a C language. Okay, it's a C language. Okay, so see 95% of the code. So now, if you have to, now you have a better way of answering the question. Why do you use Linux? Now you have a better way of answering the question. Why? What is Linux? Tell me about Linux operating system. Now you have a better answer about that. Okay. Coming back to there are some more facts which we will discuss as we go on. Right now, we will talk about some of the very, very important questions or very, very important topics on operating system. Okay. First of all, everybody should know what is the formal definition of an operating system. I know it is very much available in your textbooks. You would have all read about it. It is just a software between your hardware and software. Everybody. So you need to have a standard answer for that. Now, I mean, this slide shows where does the operating system consist of. First is your hardware. On top of that, you will install an operating system. On top of that, you will have all the apps. Right. So, for example, if you take your mobile phone, okay, your mobile phone is the hardware. The physical device that you carry on in your machine is basically the hardware. On top of it, you have the operating system, which is nothing but Android or iOS. Right. So somebody is having a mobile phone, you would have previously a few years back when we were using BlackBerry. There was a time when there used to be a phone called BlackBerry. How many of you have seen a BlackBerry phone? Maybe your father might have had, or some of your uncles might have had. How many of you have seen a BlackBerry phone? It used to have a small joystick. Right? Some people are saying yes, we have seen. Right? It's a very, very beautiful phone in those days. You know what operating system it used to use? You can find out and tell me what operating system does BlackBerry use, or BlackBerry use now. It is no more, but it was a very secure operating system. It was a very secure operating system. Right? So, anyways, coming back to this thing. So you have the hardware running on it. Okay. Now, if you take up a structure, right? So you have hardware. There are three important things that are required. One is the processor. Okay. Nowadays you have mobile phones, Snapdragon, so and so, right? Previously, we used to have only Intel, right? It used to come with a sticker called Intel inside, right? So when we were studying in our college, when we were simply sitting in the lab and not doing anything, our computer sir, Shivakumar sir, used to come and say, there is an Intel inside and a mental outside. So that's how they used to make fun of us, because we were not doing anything. Okay. So it's basically your processor. You have your memory. Your memory is nothing but your RAM. Nowadays, you have 8 GB RAM in your phone. Okay. When I was studying computer science engineering at Mugambigai College in the year 2001, in 2001, when I was in first year, our HOD, his name was Muthu Venkatachalam. He called us, right, to the lab. Everyone, all computer science students, he called us. Okay. And ours was at that time to some extent a famous college in Trichy. There used to be NIT Trichy there, and our college was the next famous college at that time. So he called us and said, see, we have got a new server for our lab, right? You see his face. He was very proud, right? And said 128 MB RAM, like that he said. So 128 MB RAM in 2001, just 20 years back, right, was the server capacity. Now on a phone, you have 8 GB RAM, right? So imagine how it improved. Can somebody tell me the law with which the computing capacity increases, doubles every year, size reduces by half every year, and price also reduces by half every year? Can somebody tell me what law it is? Who wrote this law? For 60 years before, one famous computer architect or scientist wrote a law saying that every few years, the size, the capacity would double, right? The size would be half and the price would also reduce. Who wrote this law? Does anybody know? Who wrote this law? Anyone? You should have studied in your college, right? There is a law called Moore's law of computing. He told that, okay? He told that the number of transistors, I mean, when he said transistors, it's basically the computing capability, doubles about every 2 years. The cost of the computer is halved. He wrote this several years back, not now. Not now. Okay, he did not write this now. He wrote it some 50 years back. He wrote this law and said an observation that the number of transistors on the microchip doubles every 2 years. Okay, whereas its cost is half over the same time. So he has said that the computing capacity will double, the size of it will become by half, and the price also will become by half. Okay, he said it several years and it still holds good. Okay, so you have the hardware. On top of this, you have some operating system. There are different types of operating systems. Even if you take Linux itself, there are different distributions of Linux. There are different distributions of Linux. We call it as Linux distro. We call it as Linux distro. There are enterprise Linux distros. There are enterprise Linux distro and community. That means enterprise Linux distros are some companies develop customized Linux for your need. Community means, so for this, you will have to pay some money for support. For supporting the operating system, you will have to pay. Okay. So there are different distros. Okay. Now, for example, Debian is a distro, CentOS is a distro, Kali Linux is a distro, Linux Mint is a distro, OpenSUSE is a distro. And there are so many distributions of Linux that are available in today's world. So you have an operating system. On top of operating system, you can actually run any application that is supported by the operating system. Okay, and then for programming purposes, you have compilers and interpreters. What is the difference between a compiler and an interpreter? What is a difference between compiler and an interpreter? What is the difference between Can you tell me what is a difference between a very, very important question? What is the difference between a compiler and an interpreter? Yes? No one? What is the difference between a compiler and an interpreter? Okay, very, very important question. C, you have your C language, right? Your C language is a compiler. Okay, C language uses a compiler. Your Python uses interpreter. Now, what is the difference? Suppose you wrote some 20 lines of code. Okay, if there is a error on the 50th line, your C program will not even run. That is, only when the entire code output is known, it will run. Whereas an interpreter executes the code line by line. Okay, so there is an interpreted language and there is a compiled language. So C is a compiler-based language, whereas Python is an interpreter language. So now, after the class, go back to your laptop or in your lab and find out what are all the various interpreter languages and what are all the compiler languages. What is the difference between an interpreter language and compiler language? Which is advantageous? Which is faster? Like this, you have to keep reading, right? Only when you keep reading all these things, it will give you a better confidence when you go and attend an interview. That is very, very important. Why are we doing this session even? Okay, you have so many things on internet, but why are we doing? I am going to give you some very, very finer points. Take notes and prepare these things, right? So I've just told you what is the difference between a compiler and interpreter. Now you have to go spend 5 minutes time. So in this today's topic, I have told so many things. I've spoken about distributions of Linux. I have given you some interesting points on Linux. I've given you what is Linux. So there are so many things. Make a note out of it. Whatever we have gone through in today's class, maybe using the recorded videos, go through these topics again. Make a simple note, just one page note, which will help you to do wonders when you go for a campus interview. You will have a lot of things to talk. See, many of the times you will win an interview by talking, not by answering. Okay? Answering is one part. Okay? I mean, answering is also needed. Don't tell me Kaushik said you should not answer, you just talk. No, no. You should only answer, but when you can talk, you have a better advantage. Okay. That is why I'm saying you have to talk. To talk, you cannot talk just junk. You need to talk content. You need to talk the right thing. So for that, what you should know about everything that you learn, find out all interesting stuff that is possible. Okay, that's very, very important for learning things. Okay, so just go ahead and read about what is an interpreter, what is a compiler. Okay, that will give you a better idea. Then this is the operating system structure. The operating system has two basic structures. One is a user and the system. That means whatever programs that affects only a particular user are user level stuff. Okay, and whatever things that affects at the system level are basically system programs. So we will talk more about that in detail in tomorrow's session on what is a system level program, what is a user level program, how a Unix operating system is built, what are all the major concepts of operating system like scheduling, processing, then page swapping, virtual memory, like that. These important concepts, what are these important concepts, and how to learn these important concepts, and where these concepts are applied, that we will see in tomorrow's class. Any questions? Krishnan, over to you. You can take. I'm stopping the share. You can take.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions?
Shall I continue from here?
Krishna, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the wonderful session. So, by continuing with yesterday's session, I'm going to show you a few more basic commands which we perform in a Linux operating system for a day-to-day activities. So, yesterday we have seen that how to list the files and directory in a particular directory, and how to open the file and how to edit the file and how to delete a file. So what we have seen yesterday. Today I'm going to show you how to copy the file and move the file from one folder to another folder. So I'm sharing my screen now. So hope you are all able to see my screen now, right? Please confirm by raising your hands. Yeah. So today I'm going to see for the first command we are going to see the copy command. So in Windows, how do you copy a file? You just click on a file and right click and copy and put it in paste it in somewhere some other location or some other folder or some other thing. So the same kind we are going to do here. So for copying, you need a source and destination. Source is your copying the file, and destination is where you are going to get the file. So these are the two things required for the copying the file. So, here I am creating a two directories. One is called AF1. I have created two directories. Now I am navigating the directory one. So there is no file set up now in the directory. So I am creating a file using a touch command. You put the LL command here. Now you could see the two files inside the directory slash home slash Ubuntu and slash dir1. So inside the dir1 directory, you will see the two files. One is the sample one, another one is the sample two. Okay. Okay. Then I'm going to copy the sample file one into the directory dir2. So for doing that, you need to use the cp command. cp space, and so currently I am in a folder called dir1. So the file will be under the directory. So I am directly putting the file here, and what is the directory I'm going to put the what is my destination. I'm going to put that file in the destination directory, that is the directory 2. So for doing that, the both the dir1 and dir2 will be under the slash home slash Ubuntu directory. So I'm going to give the give the path of the destination directory. So for doing that, slash home and Ubuntu and dir2. So and the if you want to give the same file name will be there in the directory too, you can just simply put the dot file, or if you want to give some other file name, you can give some other file name. Right now I'm going to give the same file name, so I'm going to put the current location. So I'm just copying the sample file one from the directory dir2, so sorry, dir1 to the dir2 directory. So by doing that, the file is copied now. Now I'm going to navigate to the directory 2. So, I'm verifying currently right now I'm in the directory 2, AR 2. So it is giving. So I'm putting the LL command here. So I have got the file here. So this is how you copy the file from one directory to another directory. Okay. So I'm going back to the directory one now. So opening the sample file. Just adding some content. I'm changing it. So now I have some content inside the sample file one. So I'm going to copy this file with a different name inside the directory. Okay. So for doing that, I'm using the same copy command. The same what is my source file name. The source file name will be a sample file one and the destination directory /home /ubuntu and directory 2 and inside I'm going to write some other file or file number and file 3. So if you go to the directory 2 and dir2, we see two files. One is the one previously which I have copied, that is the 0 kb, and another one is the file, the sample one file I have copied into the different name, that is the sample file 3. If you see that content of the file, the same content will be here as well. So this is what the copy command. Okay. So another command I am going to show you is the move command. So in Windows, how we are going to perform the move? You just right click the file and cut and paste it in somewhere else. So in Linux, we are going to perform the move command using the mv command. So mv, I am going to move so currently I have two files in my AR2 directory. Okay. So I'm going to move this sample3 file into my directory 1. Okay. So I have already having the file as the file sample3 in my directory. So when I'm moving the file, it will replace the file in the destination directory. Okay, by default. If you are not giving the without any confirmation, it will replace. So I'm going to move this file from not a directory 1. I'm going to move that file in a /home/ubuntu directory itself. Okay. For example, by doing that mv, I'm moving the sample file from here to /home/ubuntu directory. That's it. If you can enter in, the file will be moving from here. If you see the sample file will not be here. It will be in the /home/ubuntu directory. Don't see that. You can put the list command and followed by the entire path. If you can see the sample file 3 here. Okay. So by performing the me command, you can move the file from one directory to another directory. Okay. Any doubts or any questions? Okay. So the next command will be the rename command. How we are going to rename a file a directory. Okay. So currently I'm in the directory called DA2. There will be a file, for example, 1. I'm going to rename the file. Okay. For renaming the file also, we are going to use the move command only. So by performing that file name, and I'm going to put the file name here itself. So I'll change the file name for test file. So from sample 1, the file will be renamed as test. So that is what we are going to perform here. Do that. So if you see, the sample file will rename as test. So this is so for performing the for moving the file from one location to another location or else renaming the file. So for those processes, we are going to use the MV command for both the things. Okay, it is clear. Somebody is saying your voice is not clear. Is my voice is audible to all? Yeah. So next we are going to see the what are the permissions available in the Linux. What are the file permissions, file and directory permissions. So if you can see here for the test file, these are the permissions available in Linux. See, the first three positions will represent the user permission. First, basically, read, write, and execute permission is available in the Linux. So the first three positions represent the user permission, and next three positions is representing the group permissions, and another three positions representing the others permission. Okay, so the test user is having the user permissions or read write, and it there will be a group as well. Okay, say for example, I have created the accounts group. In that accounts group, I have a 10 users. So in that 10 users also having the read write permission for the test file. Others, say for example, I have a group called HR or something like that. So in that HR group member can only see the content of the test file. They cannot edit the file. So these are the permissions available in the Linux. So that and I'm going to create a directory. I'm going to create a directory called dump. So if you can see dump, it will be it is a folder. So how do you identify whether it is a folder or file? So I'm going to show you. So in that file permission, if you are it will start with the hyphen, then it is a file. See here, there will be a it will start with the hyphen. So if it will start with the hyphen, then it is a file. And before that, you would see the D letter. So if it is start with the D, then it is a folder. Okay. So in that way, you can differentiate whether it is a file or folder. Okay. The permissions remaining the same. So the folder has the user permission of read, write, execute, and the group also having the read, write, execute, and the others only having the write and execute permission for this folder. Okay. So these are the permissions available in Linux system. So how do you change the permission for a particular file or a folder? That I'm going to show you now. Okay. First, let's take the example of the test file. So test file is having a permission for the user read write and group read write and others only read. So I'm going to assign a executable permission for the test file for the user alone. So how, how I am going to perform, I will tell you. Okay, just a minute. So chmod space plus chmod space you represents a user plus I'm going to add the permission. So I'm going to use the plus and x and followed by the file. So we can put the ll command again. If you see the differentiate here, the test file is shown as a white color, and after I am adding the executive permission, it is shown in green color. And in the permission as well, you are able to see the X is added here. Here for the user, it is here in hyphen, and the executive permission, after I am adding the executive permission for the user, it is showing here the RWA. So the test file for the user is having all the three permissions. Okay, like that you can change the file permission. Folder permission will be the same. Say for example, if you are having the multiple, if you want to change the folder permission alone, you can use the same command. So I'm going to change the folder permission as well for the root user. So for the dump folder, the other does not have the write permission. So I'm going to assign a write permission for the folder dump. So for doing that, I'm going to use the same command change mode. O denote for the others. I'm going to assign the write permission. So I'm assign the write permission. So write denote for W and the folder name. Dump. So if you can see the write permission also assigned here for the dump. You can see the difference here. There is no W here and W added after I am using the command change mode. The folder permission also coming in. So this is how we can change the file permission and the folder permission. Okay. So any doubts? Yeah. So next I'm going to change the owner of the file and permission. So how to change the owner? So this is called the use. This first column is denotes the user and the group. So I'm going to change the user only. So I'm going to change the user for the folder and test. So how we are going to perform this by using the chown command. Chown and followed by the what is the user, what is the owner, what is the user group or owner group you are going to change that you need to give instead of Ubuntu. So yesterday I have created the user called Tom. I am going to give that Tom followed by the file name. So it is not space permission denied. So for doing the changing the owner, we need to issue the command as a administrator. So as I told yesterday, we are using the sudo command to run the command as a administrator. Okay. So now you can see the owner for the test file is the top. Now the Ubuntu use Ubuntu user is not able to edit the Ubuntu user also having the read permission. So others may not have the permissions. So by issuing the chown command, you can change the owner of the file. Okay. So you can either the file permissions you can either by doing using the command called plus W denotes the write and R denotes the W denotes the write permission, R denotes the read permission, and X denotes the executable permission. In there is another way to change the file permission by using the numeric number. So I think that 4 denotes the write and W 2 denotes the read. Sorry, read and W denotes the write. The numeric number 2 denotes the write permission and the numeric one denotes the executive permission. So you need to think it that way, 4 to 1. Okay. So if I navigate into the directory 1 now. So if I want to give the executable permission for the file 1 for the user alone, I'm going to use the command yes mode change mode and followed by the 700. So I'm going to remove the permission for the file 1 read write for the group and for others as well, and I'm going to give the read write execute permission for the file sample 1 for the user. So by for doing that, if you see the read write for the group is removed and the read permission for the others also removed by issuing the command, because I'm only giving the user permission alone here for read write. So if I gave the 400 here, we'll have only the read permission only. See, it has got changed. Instead of RWX, it has got changed to R alone. So if I want to give the write permission as well, you need to issue the command 4 plus 2 6. 4 is the read and 2 numeric denotes the write permission. So 4 plus 2 6. So I'm going to use the 6 for example 5. The RW will be coming here. So like that you need to understand. Okay. Same like if I want to give the group permission to the read write, I'm going to issue the one more command. So if I want to give the read write for the user and read for the group as well, you need to issue the command like this. It denotes the read write permission. This is for user and this is for the group for the file sample. So if you can see here for user and group both are having the read and write permission. Okay. Any doubts? Okay. So I will stop the session with this. Tomorrow we will see how to check the processor in how to check the running processor in the Linux machine, and how to check the ports, and how to check the CPU and memory values in the Linux system. That we will see tomorrow. So I'm stopping it now. You can practice those commands and let me know if you have any questions. Stopping my screen sharing and stopping my recording.